So, so we are continuing from where we stopped. Guys, we are continuing from where we stopped. So it's the evolution of management thought. So last week we had presentations last week where we were looking at some of the scholars who came up with theories regarding the evolution of management. So today we are going to look at these people again. So we are considering how management evolved and how management has contributed to the growth of management in the modern times. So management has been there for a long time. People in the past, they used to practice management, but then they didn't know that they are practicing management. So we have had some of the individuals or some of the accomplishments in the past that were based on management, but then the people of that time, they didn't know that they were using management. For example, we have had, I gave 2 examples, the construction of the Great Wall of China and the pyramids of Egypt. So these activities, they involve the use of management. But then during that time, people didn't know that they were using management because they didn't have management books, or they had nowhere where they could get information on management. But then it was now just before the 20th century when people now became to be involved in management, and they started to find out new ways of doing things and also new ways of improving how organizations were being managed. So before we start looking at the works of some of the scholars, there were 2 activities that happened during the 18th century. So the first one was Adam Smith. So this is a person who is commonly referred to as the father of economics. This person, he published a book which is called The Wealth of Nations. So in his book, he talked about division of labor. So he said labor must be divided into simple tasks for efficiency and productivity of organization. And then there was also another activity that changed the dimension of management, and this was the Industrial Revolution. So I think most of us knows what Industrial Revolution is. So it was the period whereby people were changing from using manual work, and then they started using machines to produce products. So what happened was that when people were using machines, it means people now were producing things in large quantities. And then when they were producing things in large quantities, it meant that they needed these projects to be looked after. So there was a need for management to be there, because now people were organized and people were producing things in large quantities. So Adam Smith's book on Wealth of the Nations and then the Industrial Revolution, it changed the whole dimension of management. Now it was this time when people were now involved. Now they became much interested in knowing what management is and how management can be improved within the organization. So today's lesson, we will discuss some of the individuals who made some contributions towards management. So we did this presentation last week. So these people, so we're going to discuss about Frederick Winslow Taylor, Henry Fayol, and Max Weber. So we are starting with Frederick Winslow Taylor. So this person was interested in, mainly, he called his principle, he called it scientific management. So Frederick Taylor, he was from United States, and then he was working in a factory. So what he wanted to improve regarding management was what we call efficiency. So when we are looking at these three people, Taylor, Frederick Taylor, this one was interested in improving efficiency within the organization. And then he was mainly concentrating on employees. So how can we improve efficiency within the organizations? By focusing on how employees do their work. And then the other two, Weber and Fayol. These two people were interested in management. So management. So these two were interested at management level. And then that person, Taylor, he was interested in studying management at individual level. So Taylor, he was also working in a factory in the US. So what he noted was that there was inefficiency. So inefficiency means there is no what you call optimal utilization of resources. So Taylor wanted to find out ways of improving resources. So he developed what we call scientific management approach to management. So he said, for efficiency, for an organization to have efficiency, organizations must follow what we call a scientific management approach. So he said, each and every manager within an organization, he has to attach a scientific way of doing things when he or she is working on each and every activity within the organization. So he said, whenever a manager is doing something, he has to use scientific ways of doing that thing. So this manager shouldn't just use what you call his own judgment or his own intuition or his own experience, but then he should involve a scientific method or a scientific system when doing that activity. So when he was doing his studies, his main emphasis was that the organization has to come up with scientific ways of doing things. So what he did was that he came up with principles of scientific management. So he said each and every organization has to adopt these principles of scientific management. So the first one, he said, we have to approach each and every activity within the organization scientifically. So we are using science to do each and every activity within the organization. So he called it science, not rule of thumb. So previously, managers, they were just doing things according to how they understand that particular thing. For example, they were just using their judgment, their experience on how that thing has been doing in the past. and then also their personal experience. But then he said, no, we have to use science. So each and every activity, when we're approaching that thing, we have to involve science. So that was the first principle of Taylor. So using science, rather than using what we call a rule of thumb, whereby we're using traditional ways of doing things, by using the manager's experience, the manager's judgments, and also the manager's intuition. The first one. The second, he said, the way we select our employees, it has to be formal selection. So it means we are not choosing anyone to do the thing, but then we are choosing only those people who have experience, who have competencies. So when we are choosing people based on the competencies, it means it also improves the overall performance of the organization. But then when we are choosing people who don't have experience, who don't have knowledge on what they are doing, it means these people, they will not contribute to the overall development of organization. So that's what he emphasized. So that was his second principle. So we have to have formal selection, whereby we're choosing employees based on their qualifications, competencies, and also skills. So the next one, he called it harmony and not discord. So he said within an organization, there are two groups of people. We have the managers, so we have the management, and then we have the employees. So he said, in this organization, there must be what we call harmony or not discord. So by harmony, we just mean, there must be some sort of unity or a proper understanding. So in this organization, we must have unity or proper understanding. So what he said is that in most organizations, there is no understanding or there's no unity. For example, the employees, they think that they are being underpaid. Or the management, they think that the employees, they are being overpaid. And the management, they think that the employees, they are not doing their job. So this one said, Taylor said, in each and every organization, there must be harmony, whereby we're having cordial relationships. So there is this existence whereby employees and management are able to work together towards achieving the goals of an organization. So that was his third principle of scientific management, whereby we have to promote harmony within the organization. Questions so far? Yeah. The second one? Okay. So harmony. So, okay. So harmony was Taylor's third principle of management. So he said, in each and every organization, we have two groups of people. We have the management, who come up with policies, and then we have the employees who follow the policies that are made by the management. And then he said, in most organizations, the employees, in most organizations, they feel that they are being underpaid. In most organizations. And then he said, the management, they think that the employees, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and that employees are being overpaid. So this person, he said, there must be harmony now. So it means employees, they shouldn't feel that they're being overpaid or they're being underpaid, whereby we're having a proper understanding between these two group of people. So we're having the employees and managers, whereby they're understanding each other. So this understanding, it will lead to positive relationship within the organization, whereby the management and the ordinary workers, they are working towards achieving the goals of an organization. So harmony must be available in an organization if it wants to achieve its goals. So that's what he said as one of the principles of scientific management. So another principle which is also similar to harmony, it's cooperation. So not individualism. So it means there must be cooperation within the organization. So employees, they shouldn't be working on their own. So they have to be working as a team by cooperating. So both the employees and the management, they have to work together. There must be some sort of unity, some sort of teamwork within the organization. And he said it's only when employees are cooperating, the management and the employees, when this organization can achieve its objective. So by individualism, it means employees are working alone. They are not working towards what the management is trying to achieve. But then when there's cooperation, it means these two people, they are one. So there's no one who is working, who is doing things whatever he wants, but then they are always going by what the management is doing. So at the end, it means this organization would be able to achieve its goals. So cooperation and cooperation, not individualism. So the last one, he said, the employees' performance, they must be improved to their greatest potential. So as an organization, it has to be able to realize the greatest potential of the employees by specialization or division of labor. So he said, for an organization to be efficient, there must be division of labor, where jobs, they are divided into simple tasks within the organization. So he said it's when jobs are divided into simple tasks when the employee would specialize. So by specialization means the employee is concentrating on a single job, and then at the end, that employee is becoming an expert in that job. So that's specialization. So he said division of labor leads to specialization. So each and every organization should aim at dividing its roles and responsibility to employees. So these are the principles of scientific management, whereby we are trying to use science when solving each and every activity which is happening within the organization. So, and then he was involved in several studies. So he called these studies as Frederick Taylor's techniques of scientific management. So he said, for an organization to live in harmony, for an organization to use science, and for an organization to accomplish all those principles, there must be specific techniques. So these are the techniques that Taylor proposed on how the organization can achieve efficiency by by usage of science in each and every activity. So the first one, he called it functional foremanship. So functional foremanship so Taylor was working in a factory. This person was working in a factory. So what he noted was that in a factory, so the factory was headed by a single foreman. Yeah, so we are on functional foremanship. So Taylor was working in a factory, and what he noted was that the factory was headed by one foreman. as one supervisor. So he said, so in a factory, there were two divisions. We had the planning division and also the production division. So this is a factory, it has two divisions, the planning division and the production division. And previously, this factory was headed by a single foreman or a single supervisor. So he said a single supervisor cannot have the knowledge or the experience of accomplishing the duties that are required in planning or the duties that are required in production. So this person alone cannot accomplish all these duties. So as the organization, to achieve efficiency, they have to elect several foremen. So there must be several foremen in each and every division of organization for it to achieve efficiency, because a single person cannot have the knowledge of planning, cannot have the knowledge of production. So that function of foremanship, it shows that an organization should have a number of foremen who are responsible for each and every department of organization or of the department. So within the planning, so this is in a factory, so it can have the planning section, it must have its own foreman, and then in the production, it also has to have its own foreman. And then within these departments, we can also have several sections. And then all those sections, they also have to be headed by someone who has experience in that department. So it was also an extension of specialization. So we have to divide things into simple tasks. So that was on foremanship. Yeah, function of foremanship, where a single person cannot do everything. So it means work has to be, the factory has to be divided, or there must be several foremen who are specialized in their field. So for example, the planning has to have a foreman who has experience in planning. The production has to have a foreman who has experience in production. So another technique was standardization. So he said, for an organization to achieve efficiency, then there must be a standard of performance or a level of performance that each and every organization must have. So we have to have a standard. So the level which is accepted by the organization. So this standard, it can reflect to the quality or the performance. So each and every activity that we are doing within the organization, it has to meet this standard that we have set as an organization. So for example, it can be the standards of output. So what we are producing, it has to be of the right standard. The standard of the working conditions, it means we are subjecting employees to the right working conditions. And then also the standard of, for example, raw materials, where the raw materials we are using in production, they have to be of the right standard. And also the machinery we are using, they also have to be of the right standard. So he said each and every organization has to have a standard of how it operates things for it to be efficient. So he also talked about compensations, like how the organization distributes wages or salaries to employees. So he said employees who are hardworking, they have to be given more than those employees who are not hardworking. So payment must be based on performance. So if you're not working hard, it means you get less. If you are working hard, it means you get more. So this is one of the principles that motivates employees to to extend enough effort in doing something. For instance, if someone has been promoted because he's working hard, then it motivates other people within the industry to also work hard for them to gain, for them to achieve promotion and other rewards. So that's what he said. So we must distribute compensations or payments based on how the individual is performing. So which is also one of the dialect one. So this person, he was very much strict on how businesses should operate. He came up with motion studies. So he did what we call motion studies. So he studied how employees move when they are working on a machine within the factory. So he studied how people move when they are operating a machine. So what he wanted was that for organization to eliminate useless motions within the organization. So he was studying how an individual moves or how a machine moves when he's doing his job. So this motion study, this was the aim. So we have to eliminate useless motions within the organization. And we have to identify the best way how the individual or the worker must move when he's producing a certain product. So he said these motion studies, they increase efficiency because we are trying to find the best way how an individual must move when he's producing a certain product. And then we're also preventing unnecessary movement within the organization. So it meant that the factory worker, he shouldn't just be moving anyhow, because that's what the motion study said. So he said, for us to improve efficiency, it means the factory worker, he or she doesn't have to be moving anyhow, because we're trying to find the most effective way of how these people who are working in the factories, they have to move, for them to extend, for them to provide their best performance. So they shouldn't just be moving anyhow within the factories when they are producing the products. He also came up with time study. So he also wanted to study the amount of time it takes for a product to be produced within the organization. So he used an average worker, someone who is average, to find out the amount of time he or she takes to complete a certain job. So these studies were done in order to determine the amount of time it takes to complete a certain activity within the organization. So these were some of the objectives. One, we want to find out the standard time, like the average time for performing a specific task within the organization. And then we want to set up the target, the standard target. For example, if we are producing something within a specific time, then we have to have a target. For example, we can say in 15 minutes, our organization or our factory should produce, for example, 20 products. It means we have set a standard of target for that specific time period. And then we also wanted to determine the number of workers for a given job. So because we are trying to find out the amount of time, then we can also find out the number of workers who can make on a given product, and also at the specific time. So that was time study. So we just want to find out the amount of time an employee takes to complete a certain task within the organization. Questions? Questions? So is it clear on time study?
Yes, clear.
It's clear. So, okay, so you want to differentiate it? Okay, yes. So you mean you want to explain? Okay. So this one is about compensations or salaries. So it means we are giving more to employees who are hardworking, and then we are giving less to employees who are not hardworking. So that's how simple it is. So if we're having employees who are hardworking, then we have to motivate these people by giving them more wages or more salaries. But then if we're having inefficient employees, then we can give them less amount of payment. And then if they are not being efficient, then maybe the organization can decide either to dismiss those employees and to have other productive and efficient employees. So this one is about payment or compensation. So we have to give more to people who are performing. We have to give less to people who are not performing. So this will improve the performance of those people who are not performing, because they will now start performing to achieve what other highly performing people in that organizations are receiving. So that's differentiated. On standardization, we have to come up with a standard. So for example, we have certain organizations that have their own standards. For example, Apple has its own standard. So it provides quality products. So that's a standard. So our organization also has to have a standard. It can be on quality. So if it's on quality, then it has to reflect to each and every activity within the organization. For example, if it's on quality, then our raw materials, they also have to be of higher quality. Our machinery, they also have to be of improved quality. And then everything within the organization, even the human resources, people who are working on these raw materials, they also have to be experienced professionals, and also they have to have skills. So all these, it means they're reflecting the standard or the level of performance that the organization has set. So that's one standard. So we have to have a certain standard as an organization. That's what he meant. Is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Any questions? So apart from time study, he also came up with what we call fatigue study. Fatigue study. So he said each and every person within the organization, he or she can get tired. But then we have to assess how long this person rests, because he or she shouldn't just be resting for a long period. So he came up with fatigue study by understanding the amount of time it takes for a person to rest within the organization. So he did this fatigue study in order, one, to find out the frequency of rest intervals. So how often does this person rest within the organization? So we are doing all this because we don't want, we want to eliminate inefficient rest intervals, because some employees within the organization, they can just rest when they are not tired, but then they have to be resting when they are tired. And then we're also assessing the duration. How long is the rest period? So and then the number of rest intervals. So we are doing all this in an organization to find out or to improve the morale of employees by eliminating unwanted waste within the organization. So this is why this person was strict for in order for how employees within the organization should conduct themselves. So that's on Taylor. So he is called the father of scientific management because it was him who developed this theory of how to improve efficiency within the organization. So that's on scientific management. And then we are so yeah, we have the last one. So another principle which is called mental revolution. So the field of harmony says workers and the management, they have different perceptions towards each other. So the management, they feel that we are overpaying the employees, and then the employees, they feel that we are being underpaid. But then this person, one of the techniques, he said that mentality or that mindset has to change. So the mindset of employees being underpaid or not performing better, or the mindset of a management not meeting the expectations of the employees, it has to change. So there must be a mental revolution whereby employees within the organization, they are changing how they see the management, and the management is also changing how they perceive the employees. So he said, it's only when people have changed this mindset or this mentality, when the organization can achieve its aims. So it means we are changing because we want to be working together. We want to be on the same page. But then if we are not changing, it means we cannot be on the same page. But then we have to change our mindset to be going to the same direction. So that was mental revolution, which is also the last technique in Taylor's scientific management. So we had Taylor. As I have already said, Taylor was interested in efficiency of employees. So employees. And then we have this management theorist, Fayol and Max Weber. So these two people, they were not interested in improving efficiency of the employees, but then they were interested in management, how the organizations are managed. So they came up with their own ways on how organizations can be managed. So we will start with Henry Fayol. So when we are looking at Henry Fayol, we have to focus much on the management, not the employees, but then the management, how the organization can be effectively or efficiently managed to achieve its overall objectives. So the two most contributions of Henry Fayol is that he came up with the 5 functions of management. So the 5 functions of management that we are studying today, these functions were discovered by this person, Henry Fayol. So the element of planning, the element of organizing, commanding, and controlling, all these were, and also coordinating. So all these were were discovered by Henry Fayol. So planning, organizing, commanding, and controlling. But then we want to focus on these 14 principles. So he also came up with 14 principles of management. So he said each and every manager within the organization, he has to make sure that he is he's obeying these 14 principles for the organization to improve. So if the manager is not obeying these 14 principles, it means the organization can be in trouble because it cannot meet its short-term as well as long-term objectives. So the 14 principles of management by Henry Fayol. So he said each and every management or each and every manager has to divide work into simple tasks for efficiency. So work must be divided according to the competences of the employees, according to the skills of the employees, and also according to the knowledge of the employees. So it means when we are giving people according to their experiences, it means they will specialize. It means they'll be experts. They'll be experts at their profession. So each and every organization, if it wants to advance or if it wants to go forward, it must divide work according to the skills, to the competences of the employees. So that's the first principle of management that was stated by Henry Fayol. So we have to ensure that we are specializing, we are dividing work according to the skills. Authority and responsibility. So he said in each and every organization, we must have authority. So there must be someone who has authority to give orders. And then we must have someone who is required to obey those orders. So in each and every organization, there must be someone who has to give orders. For example, the manager is given the authority to be giving orders. So he can, for example, he can tell the employee on what to do. It means he's giving orders. And then the employee has to follow the orders that are given to him. But then he also said with responsibility or with authority, there must also be responsibility. So if you're having more authority, it means you also have to have more responsibility. And then if you're having less authority, it means you also have to have less responsibility. So this is for example, the example of a president. For example, the president of Malawi, he has authority and then he also has responsibility. So because he's the most important person in the country, he has the greatest authority. So he can command everyone. But then because he has that greatest authority, he must also have greatest responsibility. So what means that everything that will happen in Malawi, even if it was not done by the president, but then we say that, but then we point the fingers to the president because he has the responsibility. So the amount of authority he has, it has to be equal to the responsibility. So that's what he said. We must have authority and responsibility. Discipline. Yes. 6, huh? So discipline was also another Fayol's principle of management. So he said within the organization that we must have discipline. So it's just a process of obeying and respecting the rules and regulations. So in each and every organization, we are going to find the rules that are governing that organization. So it is expected or it is required for each and every employee within that organization to go by the rules of the institution. So it is only when these people are complying with these rules when this organization can go forward. Unit of command. So this one, it says a person cannot have two masters. Unit of command. So a person cannot have two masters. So you must have a single master. So the person whom you are reporting to has to be one. So you cannot serve two masters at the same time. So employees within the organization, they should receive orders from a single person. For example, so this is the example. So if you are working here, so you have to have one superior, one manager who is looking after you. So you shouldn't have several managers where you have to report to, because you'll be confused, because you not know where to report to. So having a single superior where you are reporting to is one of the principles of management. So each and every employee, he or she has to be reporting to a single person. He shouldn't be serving two masters at the same time, but he must have only one person or only one master to serve in an organization. So we want to eliminate what we call confusion within the organization, because when you're serving two masters, you can be confused at a certain time. So that's unit of command. A unit of direction. So he said the organization has to have a single plan, and also each and every department within the organization, they have to have a single plan, and they have to be working on the plan to achieve the objective. So what happens is that it means, so if we're having two employees within the marketing department, it means all these employees, they have a single plan to achieve a certain goal. So these employees, they don't have to have separate goals. They have to have a single plan whereby they want to achieve something within that department or something within that organization. So if it's a production department, finance department, or marketing or human resource, all those people who are in that department, they have to work towards a similar goal or a similar plan. So that is called unit of direction, where we're having a single plan where we are working towards to achieve. Subordination of individual interest. So when a person is joining an organization, he may have individual interest. For example, when you're joining an organization, for example, you may have the interest of attaining power, of becoming the most powerful person within that organization. Or you can have the interest of being the most likable person within that organization. But then this one says, each and every employee who is working within the organization, they have to give up their personal or their selfish interest, and then they have to adopt the interest of organization, the general interest of organization. So this general interest of organization would be to achieve the organization's goals. So as an individual, for example, a manager or an ordinary worker, he may have interests, selfish interests or personal interests, but then he has to sacrifice or he has to give up those interests for the overall benefit of the organization's overall interests. So that's what has to be that's what has to happen in its and every organization, where no one is putting his interest first over the interest of the organization. That's what is subordination. Huh? So who has understood on subordination? Who can? Yeah.
All the subordinations are within.
Yeah, you have to explain to her.
Okay, all the subordinations for the individual is private. What you as an individual, you have to do should not be involved with the organization or should not affect organization as a whole. You have to put your ideas and your emotions outside the organization.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll just come on. So when you're joining an organization, you can have your own interests or what you want to achieve out of the organization. But then some interests, they cannot serve the overall interest of the organization. So what it says that you have to give up your personal interests. So for example, one of the personal interests would be, okay, I have to achieve power. I have to be the manager, or I have to be promoted at the expense of the organization's goals. So this one says, no, you don't have to have those personal interests, but then you have to aim towards achieving the organizational interests. For example, the organization wants to achieve profits, then you are sacrificing all your interests, all your personal interests, for this interest of achieving profits. So that's what it means. And it's also one of the easiest among these, whereby you are giving up what you want to achieve, and then you are adopting what the organization wants to achieve. Is it clear? Okay. So he also talked about remuneration, which is also another important component. So he said employees within the organization, they have to be paid for them to be motivated. So if we are not paying employees for their performance or for their work, it means we cannot motivate these people. So he said each and every organization has to be motivating the employees. How can we motivate? We are motivating these people by providing, by paying them. But then the payment has to be fair and also adequate to the employees. We are doing this because we want to achieve motivation. We want these people to be motivated towards achieving the organization's goals. So that's what this principle, remuneration, talks about. So each and every organization has to be paying its employees. So failure to pay employees, it means the employees' performance will decline. And then at the end of the day, the performance of the organization will also decline. And then as time passes, it means the organization will be out of a business because people will not be welcome to work to an organization that doesn't pay its employees. So that's remuneration. The next one, centralization. So an organization can decide to adopt a centralized policy or a decentralized policy. So the degree to which subordinates are involved in decision making. So that's this whole principle. So in centralization or in centralized system, it means power is concentrated at the center. It means all the decisions, they are being made by one person. So it's more or less like a dictatorship type of organization, whereby we have one person who is coming up with decisions. So that is centralization. Decentralization, it's when people within, other people within the organization, they're able to come up with decisions. For example, the lower employees, they're also involved in decision making. That is called decentralization. So both centralization and decentralization has its own advantages and disadvantages. So decentralization, it's called power to the people. Power to the people. In Chichewa, it's called Mpavu Kuwantu. That's decentralization. So we are making people within the organization to be making decisions. Well, this one, it's only the top managers who are making decisions. This centralization. So it says the organization should balance between centralization and decentralization. So it means that we shouldn't, so it means not everyone should be making decisions, but then we should also allow some people to be making decisions. And then it says not all decisions should be made by one person, but then we have to have a specific policies on how a person can come up with decisions. So it means we are balancing between this and this, whereby we have some policies in place, but then we're also allowing some people within the organization to be initiative by coming up with decisions or by getting involved in the decision making of the organization. Question. Is it clear on centralization and decentralization? It's clear? Okay. We still have time. Scarlet chain. So the next one, it's called the scalar chain. The next one is called scalar chain. So a scalar chain or a line of authority. So within the organization, there must be a specific line of authority. So this is an example for scalar chain. So there must be a specific line of authority. So this is an example of a scalar chain. So we must have a specific line of authority from the highest person to the lowest person. So this can be the lowest person, who is the ordinary employee in an organization. And this can be the highest person, for example, the CEO. So it says in an organization, we must have this line of authority, whereby each and every person knows his immediate superior. So if you are the ordinary employee, you have to know your immediate superior, and this person has to know his or her immediate superior, and then also this person has to know his immediate superior, which is this one. So this process, it's called a scalar chain. So he said decisions must be made within the scalar chain. So it means this person will come up with decisions to be done by this person, and then this person can come up with decisions to be done by this person. But then there's a scenario which is called this gangplank in scalar chain, whereby it allows communication between two employees of the same level. So he said employees of the same level can communicate within the organization. So an example would be here. So this one and this one can communicate because they are at the same level. So this one can be, for example, the marketing manager, and this one can be the HR manager. So because these people, they are at the same level, they can communicate. And this can be team leaders, they are at the same level, they can communicate. And these are ordinary employees, and this is also an ordinary employee in HR. This one an ordinary in marketing, they are at the same level, they can communicate. So this person, he called this scenario as gangplank, whereby individuals who are at the same level, they can communicate within the organization. Scalar chain. And then we must have order within the organization. So order in terms of everything must be, it involves doing things, it involves doing the right things at the right time and at the right place. So that's order, which is, the most common, one of the most common principles. So it means things within the organization, they have to be done at the right time and at the right place. And then also we have to be doing the right things. So it means we are